Hey everyone, it is Nina and I am going to be talking about how to prepare for a Joe Dispenza meditation retreat and some things that you might want to consider bringing to make your experience a little bit more comfortable. So I'm not going to be going into detail about what to expect during the retreat or my personal experience with it. I might touch on it a little bit. I'm going to do that in a separate video or podcast episode because I'm going to go deep into that and I'm really excited to share that with you. But for the purpose of this video is just how to prepare, because it was actually something that was really helpful for me. Before I went to the retreat, I was looking at YouTube videos, and so I really wanted to share my own experience and what was really helpful for me in the retreat. So first and foremost, before you even decide to go to a Joe Dispenza retreat, I would say be familiar with his work and also be doing his meditations for at least a few months before you even decide to go. And I say that because it can be a little bit jarring when you show up at the retreat because you're meditating like 6 or 7 hours a day. And so if you're not used to meditating, I was meditating maybe like 30 to 60 to 75 minutes a day, at a time for my longer meditation. So I was prepared, but I wasn't doing meditations, as long as what we did during the retreat, but it did prepare me for the retreat. And then also, because you are meditating so many hours that week, we're doing breath work in conjunction with it, it's going to be bringing up a lot of trauma, a lot of emotions to be released. And this is something that I think that most people are not super aware of, and they just show up after not really doing his meditations or knowing his work, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming and chaotic, and they're not really sure what's going on. And I don't say that to scare anyone. It's just more just prepare for the retreat, basically. And it's going to be much, much more helpful because you'll understand, you can observe yourself for a few months before you go to the retreat to see, okay, this is what I can expect, get a little bit of a taste of, how energy might be moving or emotions that may come up. And then you're able to hold space for yourself as you cry, or you learn, you face some emotions that come up to the surface. And so that is my number one tip, is to make sure that you're actually practicing his work before you go. And when you actually decide to go to the retreat, the next thing that I would recommend is writing your intentions for the retreat. So for me personally, I had no expectations, but I did have intentions about things I wanted to heal with my body, belief systems, and just things that I really wanted to shift in my life. However, I went in with the mindset of okay, whatever really needs to move first. I know that there are things in my body that need to move or be released, but I don't necessarily have control over what order that happens or how it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. And so I went in with no expectations. I had friends who had gone to his retreat many times, and I actually told them not to tell me some of the things that they experienced or what happened in their retreat, because I didn't want them to plant a seed in my mind and for me to have any type of expectation before I went. I really just wanted to go with an open mind and say, I'm open to how this unfolds and what happens. And so the second thing is creating that list of intentions, because once you start writing out or speaking, or maybe you do a voice note on it, your subconscious knows okay, this is what I'm going into, and this is kind of an imprint of things that we can go into when we go into these meditations. So it's super, super helpful to be very, very clear about why you are even going. And if it's just as simple as oh, I just want the experience, then write that intention down, because the more that you put your attention on that and the more that you write it out, when you write something out, you're using these muscles in your hand, you're using more connections in your brain when you're writing something out, and you're actually vocalizing it when you speak it. So that is my number 2 tip about preparing before you go to the retreat. My third tip is to actually do the online course. And Dr. Joe actually really joked around a lot about this during the retreat, because he's I know you guys didn't do my online retreat. And so it is so, so important, because it's about basically just him telling you the science and the reasoning behind why you are doing the meditations. Because if you're going into these meditations blindly, it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting some benefit. But just like anything that you're doing, when you actually understand the mechanics of it or the science behind it, it's going to strengthen your belief system around like what you're doing. So when you go into it, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I know this works. And it's also just going to help you to understand how you're navigating the spaces that you're going to when you are in meditation. And so I will say I got into Dr. Joe's work probably in like 2016, read his books, but he didn't have like, it wasn't like super big at that time, so I didn't really get into it. About 2 years ago, in January 2022, I did his online progressive course, and I started meditating probably 2 or 3 hours a day for a few months. And so I was like super into his work. It was super helpful for me to go through that online course. And when I did the progressive course again before I went to the retreat, it was like, oh, okay, it was helping me to remember things, but I was also learning new things as well. And then when you go to the retreat, he repeats the same thing but builds on it, so you have an even deeper understanding of it. So it makes the meditations that you're going into at the retreat much more meaningful, much more intentional. You're going to get so much more out of it because you have a deeper understanding of his work. So repetition is so key when you do it. And so if you're like really overwhelmed or really busy and you're like, I don't know that I can do his progressive course before, I literally was watching 30 to 60 minutes a day of his coursework for like 1 or 2 months before the actual retreat. So you can go through and see how long the videos are and pace yourself out. So sometimes I would watch like half of a video one day, and I just made that a priority every single day. And so that is my biggest recommendation, is just to immerse yourself in his work at least a month or two before you go into the retreat and actually do the online course, and obviously the meditations along with it, so that you understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because when you go into the retreat, you're going to go straight into the meditations. And if you don't have like a firm understanding of it, like you might miss, like, I don't want to say you're going to miss some of the benefits of it, but you're going to be able to go deeper into it. And so the way he teaches his meditations and his work during the week is that he builds the meditations on each other. So he'll teach you one concept and you'll go into a meditation and you'll do it. And then the next meditation, he'll do that same meditation, but he'll add a different element to it that he just taught you. So it's going to continue to build on it. So you want to have a really strong foundation before you even show up to the actual retreat. There were some people who recommended watching his series called Rewired on Gaia, and I personally did not do that. I still have not done it, but I'm sure it'll be beneficial. So if you really want to add in additional coursework or homework for yourself, then you can most certainly do that. So definitely prepare for that. During the retreat, you're going to have probably like 4 or 5 hours of lecture a day with Dr. Joe, and he will again repeat but also add on to what you've already learned. So you're going to be absorbing a lot of information. And just like anything, when you're learning anything new, it's going to create that new connection in your mind, but it's a lot to take in, to the point where it's like you're a sponge at the retreat and you get so oversaturated because you're learning all this new information that you could have already taken in before the retreat and gotten comfortable with. And now it's just going to be like an information overload while you're at the retreat. So that is my recommendation for taking in coursework and information before you go. And then as far as actual items to bring to the retreat, so I actually did not stay at the hotel. I stayed off-site somewhere that was like 5 minutes down the road. So I drove in every single day. I paid like $20 a day for parking. We got like a discounted rate, but I chose off-site because I wanted to retreat into my own cave after. I also wanted a kitchen because I wanted to be able to make my food, and I wanted laundry in order to do laundry. So I kind of wanted that in the hotel or the place that we were staying at. They did not have those options on site. So I stayed off site, and it really wasn't too much of an inconvenience because honestly, the convention center that we were at, it was so big that I'm like, to walk like to the actual event within the convention center, I'm like, it would have taken me like 15 minutes just to get back to my hotel room. So like no joke. So I think it's just a personal preference. If you want more ease, staying on site is probably going to be more helpful. You're going to have options right then and there if you're flying from out of state. I personally live like an hour away, so to me it just made sense to drive there and to stay somewhere off site because the hotel I was staying at offsite, I didn't have to pay for parking. If I had stayed on site, I would have been paying like $40 a day for parking, like something really stupid. So it just made more sense to drive in and have my own separate space. So as far as like clothing and things to wear, it is cold in the room. So I personally would wear leggings every single day. I had flip-flops on the days we did not do the walking meditations, and they'll tell you when you do the walking meditations so you can be prepared. But I brought fuzzy socks to wear during the meditations, and then I also brought a blanket. I carried that blanket around with me every single day. I also brought a small pillow. It looks like a pillow for a child, and because you're going to be laying down at the end of all of your meditations, and so it's nice to be comfortable. I honestly was so shocked that people were just laying on the bare floor or just laying on a sheet. I'm like, that floor was so hard, and I personally have like such a bony butt. I was like, how are you guys comfortable in these meditations? So I got a pillow. I also got like this blow up camping thing that you didn't blow it up. It was like a foot pump type thing, and it took like 2 seconds to get up and running. And it was actually thinner because like the event I was at, we had like around 1,700 people at the event. So we were like sardine together basically. So it wasn't like super comfortable, but you just like made it work. Some people brought yoga mats, some people brought like really big blow ups, some people just brought blankets to lay down on the ground. I personally bought this camper thing that was really long and actually narrow, so it didn't encroach on anyone else's seats, and I actually sat at least 1 or 2 seats from the end cap of every single row because I did not want to be sandwiched in between a bunch of people. I needed that space for me personally, so that made it a lot easier for me. And having that blow up on the ground, it's like I could just roll it up when we would take our breaks, and it was super easy to deal with. And then I would deflate it and it would fit into my backpack every single day. So I think it's just a preference of what you want to do, what you want to bring. It's not the end of the world if you have to lay on the ground, but we're doing a couple of meditations every single day and we're laying down at the end of all of them. And then when we do the long meditation on the final day, you're going to be there on the ground quite a bit. You're going to be going back and forth from the chair to the ground and then doing really intense breath work during it. And so if you want things to be a little bit more comfortable, then I would recommend bringing that as well. I also brought tennis shoes for the walking meditation, so I would wear those on the days that we did the walking meditations. You want to be comfortable because they're like, I think they're like 75 minutes long, and you're going to be walking on pavement, and it may not be comfortable to be walking in flip-flops if that's all that you have. So obviously bring tennis shoes and socks to go with them if you wear socks with your tennis shoes, or if you want to do barefoot. Some people were doing barefoot as well, so whatever your preference is, bring tennis shoes or not. In addition to wearing the leggings, I actually just wore a crop top every single day, and then I had a sweater that I wore over it, and then if I got overheated, I would take the sweater off, and I had my blanket. So I think it really just depends on how hot or cold that you get. I think men tend to run a little bit warmer, so maybe they don't need to dress so warm, but I wanted to dress in layers because I tend to get cold pretty easily, and they keep the room pretty cold. However, I will say, like, I had to make some adjustments here and there because when you're doing the breath work, it heats up your body, and you have the sensations in your body when you're in the meditation. And so there are a lot of times where I was like burning up in the meditations. So I found like this balance of like, okay, I just wore like my fitness like crop top and my leggings, and I had a blanket that I could like kind of take on and off, like depending on how hot I got during the meditation. I also brought a journal and a pen. There are people who are not taking notes at all during the entire retreat, and that's totally fine. I just know that when you write things down, it's going to really solidify and strengthen that new connection in your brain when you're learning something. So I personally was jotting everything down, and I also wanted a recollection of what we went over because I was, I'm going to be doing this podcast episode, and I wanted to have that information on hand to reference, and also to understand like the back end of the meditations and why we were doing them. So I think it's just a personal preference. Like, I think if I go to another retreat, I probably will not be taking a journal and taking as many notes as I did. And honestly, as the week went on, I journaled less because there was information where he went really into the pineal gland and the eye of the Horus, and this was information that I was kind of familiar with, but a lot of it was new, and it was so fascinating, and I was like just listening the whole time, and I did not want to like stop and write it because I was just like absorbing the information. So if you want, I would have that, but then also like have a journal just to reflect on, to share your experiences. I wrote down my experiences after every single meditation just because I wanted to have that captured so I could go back and reflect on it. And I think that's especially important or helpful when you leave the retreat, because you're gonna have to integrate this, and you're gonna be triggered by things in your environment, and you're gonna go back or revert back to the old. And so for me, it was helpful to have my journal that I could go back and look at the lecture notes that I had, and then also my experiences in the actual meditations and the lessons and the healings that I received in those meditations, because just having that, it was like such a reminder of like, okay, that was the energetic space that I was in, and knowing that like, oh, I have that and I've been there in that space, and it helps anchor you in wherever you're at in the moment. And then also you want to bring headphones for the walking meditation. So it doesn't matter what kind of headphones you have. I brought 3 different pairs just in case. I had 2 Bluetooth ones and 1 wired headphones just in case. So I highly recommend bringing those for the walking meditations. I'm sure you can buy them at the hotel or something if you forget, but obviously you don't want to be like that person who's listening on your phone. Like you can, I think there might have been a few people there who did that because they didn't have headphones. Again, not the end of the world, but honestly, like you want to be immersed in the meditation when you are walking, because it's going to be that much more potent and powerful and impactful on you. The last few things as far as what to bring to the actual retreat, I brought an empty Yeti water bottle that I could fill up with water. I like to have my own water on me at all times, instead of like carrying around these little plastic cups that they had. They obviously had water and food and all of that stuff. But I have like my things that I like, and I know like how I like to eat, and so the water bottle was something that I brought. And I also just brought like a bunch of protein bars and just like snacks to eat throughout the day. So I typically eat pretty light during the day and then eat my heavier meals at night. However, you get breakfast and lunch there, and that's not typically like a big meal eating time for me. So I was like, I'm just gonna bring snacks here and there if I need to. They also had shops on site if you wanted to buy anything, if you didn't like the food that they had. And honestly, the food was pretty good. I did go and eat a little bit every single day. So I think it's, again, just a personal preference with the food. And you are up at like starting at 6 a.m. almost every single day. There is one day that you start at 4 a.m. So just want to prepare you for that. I was not typically a morning, like an early riser. It really wasn't a problem for me because I was like fully in it. I was like, I'm here, I'm going to immerse myself in this experience. If anyone knows me, I'm like pretty extreme. Like when I get into something, I'm going to go like 150% into it to have that full experience and immerse myself in it before I really like step back from it. So to get up every single morning and to like just be there, I was like very committed. So just want to like add that in, like make sure you are aware that you're going to be getting up that early, and just know that even if you don't get a lot of sleep, I was probably getting like 3 to 6 hours of sleep a night, because your days start at 6 and you can go until like 6, 7, 8, 9 at night, depending on how long he is talking and how long your meditations go. You don't really know. And then so that really doesn't leave a lot of time. Like I went home, so if you're working, like I went back to my hotel room and I was working, I was getting client work done, and if I felt like I was playing my guitar and like, I was like having like my decompression time after, the 15, 16 hours, however long we were there, to kind of like decompress after the actual event and each day. And there were some nights where like I didn't go to bed till after 12, because honestly, sometimes I would come back and I would do another meditation before I went to bed, or I would do the breath work before I would go to bed, because I had like things moving, and it's just, I felt like sometimes things got a little stuck. And so doing that was helpful for me to prepare me for the next day. So like I said, I was all in. And even though I didn't get a lot of sleep, it's like you were so energized from doing the meditations. There are times, like if you have an intense meditation where you're releasing a lot of stuff, I did have 1 or 2 meditations like that where I was just like, I just need to lay here. But honestly, like there's maybe like 1 or 2 days where I was like, I'm like dozing off in the late afternoon when like the scientists were coming up and talking, like nothing against them. But those were like the only 2 times where I was like, oh, I'm, kind of sleepy. But it's like you perk up pretty quickly. And then when you're in the meditations, you're in it, like it's very loud. You can't, you just can't fall asleep. Like it's just, you're in it. It's very stimulating. And then when you're in the meditation and you're very present, it's not going to matter. You're not going to be sleeping. And just a few final things is don't wear makeup at the retreat. Honestly, like I wore mascara like a few days during the week, like waterproof, and I was like, oh, I'll be fine. And then there were like a couple meditations where I was like, I was like crying, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I did not wear makeup. But I would see women like applying makeup and stuff like in between the meditations, like, totally fine if you do that. Just for me personally, I was like, you know what, I'm just not even gonna wear anything. Like you don't need to, like you're not trying to impress anyone. Like you are there to go inward and to have your experience and to let go of whatever it is that you're trying to let go of. And there will be tears and there will be releases. And if you want to have a face filled with mascara and makeup at the end, like, you do you. I just know for me personally, I was like, this is not even like worth it. Like I'm not here to impress anybody. And also if you're very active, we're sitting a lot, obviously. So I personally did not do this, but there are a lot of people that I talked to that would take walks around the hotel during breaks and would get like their steps in or whatever, and they would move and stuff. And I would typically stretch in between like our breaks. So I would recommend doing that just because you're sitting for so long. So I would do it in the morning and like in between breaks, and then when I would come home or come back to my hotel at the end of the day. And the way that the rooms are broken out is, I think there were like 6 or 7 different groups, like where they split out by colors. And so whatever color that you had, you would go in that section, and they switched the sections throughout the week. So you would have an opportunity to sit closer or farther away. Honestly, when I had the opportunity to sit like right up next to the stage, it was the coldest place in the entire room. And from what I understand, the people who actually did sit in the front rows, they were like, they couldn't see the screen in front of them. So like if things were being shown, they really couldn't see the screen, or it was so cold that they couldn't focus in their meditation. So I think it's wise to maybe like scope out the room maybe a little bit and just see like what the temperature is and what's most comfortable and where the screen is in relation to wherever your seat is. Like I said earlier, I personally sat close to the end chairs. I was never more than like 2 seats in. For me, it just felt like way too sardine. If I felt like I needed to escape or whatever, it was like it was more open on one side and I could leave much more easily instead of stepping over other people. So I made sure to actually, before they opened the doors, I made sure to get there like 15 minutes or so before they actually open the doors. There's typically people that sit and wait. There were a couple of times that I didn't do that and I still got a great seat. So I think it's just, whatever you want to do and your personal preference. I will say for the long meditation, the pineal gland meditation that you're doing on Friday or whatever morning they decide to do it on, I would recommend getting there like half hour, an hour early. I ended up getting there like 3 a.m. because I wanted to talk to staff about some things before I went in. So I went in early so that I could like find somebody and talk to them. And so I ended up getting like a really great seat, and I was really happy with where I was sitting. And I always sat by some like really incredible people who were so supportive and really amazing. So I think that you're always going to sit next to the people that you need to sit next to, or that are mirrors to you, or like are in a certain vibrational alignment that you're going to run into, and they're going to show you things, and they're going to be, who you need to talk to or see in that retreat, or have that experience to mirror back, or to show you where you're judging them or where they're triggering you, or maybe see the beauty in who you are as well. So I don't think that there's any right or wrong like who you sit by. I think for me personally, it was just, I found my spot and it felt good. I didn't feel like trapped or confined in it. So yeah, definitely get there early if you have a preference, just so that you can get a little bit more comfortable. So that is it. I hope that this was helpful for you if you are planning on going to a Joe Dispenza meditation retreat. This is how I prepared. These are my recommendations. You can take them or leave them, do what you want with them. I will put more information about like things that I bought for the retreat, like the pillow and the camper blow up thing, if that's helpful to you. And yeah, I hope that you all have an incredible time. It was such a life-changing retreat for me. It really, like, I did so much work before I went into the actual retreat. And so it was almost like I needed to be in that collective energy in order to really like up level or move forward in a different way, because I wasn't able to do it on my own. So it's very helpful for that. People are incredible and amazing, and I was actually really worried that it was going to be overwhelming with so many people there. So I'm not a fan of crowds, and the energy was very different. Like if you've been to a Tony Robbins event, it's like, this is like so intense, versus this retreat with, you know, just a couple thousand people. But there was like, the energy was just softer. Like it didn't bother me at all. And I was like, wow, this is actually really great, because I was concerned to be around that many people. So if that bothers you, like just know it actually was not an issue for me at all. And pretty much every single person that you meet is super friendly. So with all of that being said, best of luck at your retreat, and I hope you guys have an amazing time. I know that you will. And I will post a link to the podcast episode of my actual experience at a later date if it is not here on here already. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye.